It was almost 2 a.m. before I was even halfway home after a rather long late night shift. Great, just my luck. What did I do this? I just want to go home. I yelled to myself in the car, along with a slew of cuss words as my dashboard began to flash like a Christmas light, and the engine began making noises that didn't sound like noises an engine should make. Not long after that, it began to smoke up, which an engine definitely shouldn't do. I managed to find a mechanic close enough to drive to before it completely broke down. So, how long do you think it'll take? I asked the mechanic, a scruffy, stereotypical hillbilly. Maybe mid-50s, with a patchy long beard, and what looked like even patchier hair under his trucker hat. He went on about some car talk I didn't understand, scratching his ass the whole time, before finally answering. Won't take long. I'm fast with my hands. I raised an eyebrow. Okay, but how long do you think exactly? I asked, somewhat annoyed. 10-ish hours? He said before spitting next to his boot. Ish. Alright, here. I said with a sigh before paying for my repair. Appreciate it. Enjoy Mammonville County, he said with a smirk, as he swiped the cash from my hands and stuffed it in his pocket, not even bothering to count it. I figured I'd try to find somewhere to eat, considering I had missed out on dinner, and breakfast would be rolling up soon enough, so I called my wife to explain the situation, ask if she needed anything, then left the shop. The town was basically in the middle of nowhere, but just barely. It was the type of tiny town you drive through all the time but never stop at. I found a 24/7 diner that was actually pretty good. I definitely pigged out seriously though. 6 pancakes topped with ice cream, and a side of eggs and bacon for $6 is too good to pass up. Thanks to my rather large early breakfast, along with a morning dessert, I managed to kill about 3 hours, along with maybe another hour of playing on my phone, before paying for my meal and leaving the diner. On my way back to the shop, I came across a rather strange building. It looked like a tiny 2-room shack, and was rather far from every other building in the town. I was gonna walk right past till I read the faded sign hanging on the window. Antiques and nostalgia for cheap. Huh, strange. Never heard of anyone selling nostalgia. I assumed it meant nostalgic items, and me and my wife are suckers for old collectibles from our childhood, so I decided I'd give it a look. I walked in expecting to see some tiny rundown thrift shop, but no. This building worked like a TARDIS. Bigger on the inside and much cleaner. My brain was having a system reboot just attempting to process what I was seeing. I tried to think of a logical, realistic explanation for it, but there wasn't one. The place was just larger on the inside. It looked never-ending, in fact, just a void of blue honeycomb carpeting, Greek palace-like walls, and a single long aisle, with haunting angelic opera music playing throughout. As I tried taking in my surroundings, a man's voice brought me back to reality. Well, maybe that isn't the best word for it. Welcome, sir. How are you tonight? Unlike everyone else I've encountered in this town, his voice was dignified, proper. He spoke like the type of rich guy who feels obligated to talk classy. I looked to my left to see a pale man with a goatee and long slicked back hair, standing behind a seemingly never-ending desk, with only a single open book of names with dates of purchases, some looking to date back to the 1500s. The man was dressed like a bartender you'd see in an old western movie, wearing a red bow tie and black dress pants, a black suit vest with a white bottom up underneath, with the sleeves rolled up to the elbow. Huh? This? But what? How? I blubbered out in confusion, trying to ask where I was before getting cut off. Where are you? An antique store, as the sign says. As you can see, I'm quite the collector. I needed a place able to hold all I have for sale, and this place worked perfectly. Please feel free to browse to your heart's content. He encouraged, explaining things so laid back. I did so, trying to ignore the whole infinity room thing. As I traveled down the single endless row of shelves, these were all items that would be better suited to be sold in an auction for millionaires. Rifles and flintlock pistols apparently used in the American Revolution. Samurai blades and masterfully crafted armor from the feudal period. Personal letters and journals of historical figures like Nikola Tesla, Lu Bu, and every president in history, from the US or any other country. What solidified this stuff's authenticity for me was the jewelry, you see. I've been a jeweler for over 10 years, specifically in the authenticity department, meaning it's my job to spot the difference between real and fake gems and ores. So if these things weren't real, they were the most well-made fakes I've ever come across. As the sign promised, it was all for cheap. Prices like $2, $3, $1. But next to each dollar sign there was another symbol, a Y with a lowercase e in the center of it. I figured it was just another form of currency from another country, but noted it was strange how there were no other symbols to any other countries aside from America and the unknown place. My greed got the best of me, grabbing over 10 things from the Stone and Iron Age for a whopping $13. However, during my shopping spree, I noticed there was nothing past the time of World War II. Certainly nothing from my younger years. The shopkeeper must have been able to read my mind, because the second that popped into my head, I heard his voice once more from right next to me. "Can I help you with anything, sir?" I jumped back, feeling my heart jump into my throat. I didn't even hear him coming up to me, like his footsteps were silent. Yeah, hi. You got anything more recent? Like mid-80s to late 90s? The sign said nostalgia. All this is kind of old. I asked, trying to ignore the fact he just Houdini'd over to me. When I did, I could see a large, pearly white grin spread across his face, one that was a little too wide. "Ah, you're looking for something more personal. That would be in the other room. This way, please," he said, extending his arm forward and standing aside. As we reached the front desk, I realized there was a door next to the entrance I completely missed on my way in. As we pressed the desk, he stopped and turned to me. "Would you like to pay for these now, so you may leave them at the desk while we continue, or would you prefer to lug it around?" he asked, pointing down to the pile of medieval and caveman relics in my arms. I shrugged and decided to do so, and he bagged them and left me on the desk for when I was ready to leave, insisting we end the deal with a handshake. Despite the fact our business wasn't over, before entering the back room, rather than any shelves, it was a single large podium, illuminated by a row of LED lights. "So, where's the stuff?" I asked, slightly worried he might have brought me back here to butcher me or something. He shook his head and clicked his tongue. "No, not personal items. I can offer you something much better," he said as he flipped a switch, lowering down the podium to surface level. "I can offer you the chance to relive some of your fondest memories, as if it were the first time." I raised my eyebrow and crossed my arms. "And what do you mean by that?" I asked. He flashed that large grin once more. "I mean, even the most vivid dream couldn't compare to the feeling of nostalgia I can grant you. I can bring you to the very source of that nostalgia. Just step on the podium, think of the memory you'd like to enter, and close your eyes," he said with great charisma. I looked back and forth between him and the podium before shrugging. "Alright, why not?" I said. "Splendid." He then guided me to the podium, instructed me once more before shaking my hand once more and telling me to have fun. I did so, closing my eyes, opening them to see myself in the mirror. 17 years ago in college. I knew exactly the day, too, seeing I was wearing the goofy Reese's shirt and baggy sweatpants, along with my roommate playing Ocarina of Time on our shitty little TV, asking me if I was ready for Benny's party. The very party I met my wife. It was the strangest feeling. I don't even really know how to describe it. I knew I was in the past, but at the same time had absolutely no clue I was reliving my life. I both could and couldn't speak and move freely, as trying to say anything about the future would make me forgetful and quickly moving on from the topic. It was as he said, better than any vivid dream you could imagine. The night was as perfect as I remember, from the enjoyment of reliving a crazy party from my younger years, but more importantly, the feeling of meeting Stephanie for the first time. I remember going mush-brained on sight, getting trashed enough to try and talk to her, getting her old phone number I've almost forgotten, down to the end of the night, ending with how any truly romantic college love story normally starts. A drunk one-night stand. And waking up realizing we'd like doing more than hooking up at frat parties. Not long after she left my dorm the next morning, I woke up, back into the empty room with the suited man. "Well, did you enjoy yourself?" he asked with a confident smirk. It took me a few moments to remember I had just purchased temporary time travel, and it was crazy. Holy shit, that was something else, man. How much was it? I asked to fish out my wallet from the pocket. He waved his hand in the air with a cheeky grin. "Not necessary. You've already paid in full," he said as he raised the podium with the number 15 and that strange Y symbol labeled on the price tags. Unlike the price tags, there was no regular dollar sign next to it. I scratched and looked at him. "What does this Y thing mean anyway?" I asked, tapping the metal plate it was engraved on. His response made me freeze from fear. His grin grew much wider. "Years, Mr. Talbert," he announced. I stared at him for a while in shock. How do you know my name?" I asked. I could hear the shakiness in my voice as I asked it. "Why, I know everything about Ryan. I know you were born on November 4th, 1986. I know you almost died of hypothermia when you were 8 trying to catch Santa on Christmas. I know you have twins, Samuel and Samantha. Lovely children, by the way. Need I go on?" he said as he crossed his arms. I tried to register the fact that this man I've never seen before in my life knew everything about me. I was so lost about it I almost completely forgot the first part of his answer. "What did you mean, years?" I asked cautiously. He threw his head back with a laugh. "Is it not obvious? You've paid to relive one of your fondest memories in your past, in exchange for possible memories in the future," he explained matter-of-factly. Does. I tried to mumble out of my somewhat nerve-induced paralyzed mouth, before he answered the questions for me, before I could finish asking. "Yes, Ryan. You've just given me 15 years of your life. Of course, that's not including the previously spent 13, so that would be 28 years of your life," he said with a sting in his voice, like a loan shark who swindled his biggest debt-racked schmuck. But I gave you money for those things out there," I yelled out, almost in plea after hearing my remaining lifespan had been shortened by at least a quarter. "If I'm lucky." He clicked his tongue again and flashed that same cheeky grin. "You can think of that as a donation of sorts. After all, you'll most likely sell at least one of those items for a large sum of money. Surely you won't mind $13. I could feel my rage boil, melting over my frozen paralysis, charging the man ready to beat the shit out of him. "You tricked me," I yelled, swinging my fist toward his face, only to land straight onto mine as my knuckles connected with empty air. "Tricked you?" I heard him say from my left. His voice was different, though. It was deeper than anything a human can make. I slowly turned to see a set of crouched goat-like legs, with shiny gold-plated hooves. I slowly looked up to see a half-goat, half-goblin-like creature with crimson-red skin, a wolf-like snout filled with gold and even diamond teeth, and yet what seemed to glow silver. He wore an excessive amount of the finest jewelry, along with a large platinum crown. You came into the store on your own accord, did you not? He hissed, grabbing the hair from the back of my head and pulling it upwards to meet him face to face, his bright silver eyes staring right through me. You had plenty of opportunity to ask what that simple symbol could mean. Did you ask the price for reliving your memory? No, you let your greed guide you, and you've paid the price for it. Now please take your items and leave, or shop some more if you'd like, he mocked. Just remember, we don't forget to shake on it when we're done. He finished with another laugh before dropping my head back to the ground. My body felt like it was made of stone, causing me to smack it rather hard, putting me in a heavy daze. I dared not argue with whatever he was, but could only ask one question. Are you the devil? I was horrified at the beast I was seeing. He cackled and slapped his knee. If I had a nickel for every time I've heard that one, thinking about it, I probably do. No, the old man was no such need for a thing. I mean, neither do I, but there's something just so fascinating, not to mention hilarious about messing with your human minds. Now, would you like to see this chit-chat going? He started as he tapped a solid gold watch wrapped around his wrist. I couldn't even say anything, just stare in shock and awe. After a minute, he sighed. All right, then. He muttered before snapping his fingers. Suddenly, I was waking up in my car completely repaired outside the shop. Not even an hour after originally entering. I tried to convince myself it was a dream, till I looked to my passenger seat to see my bag of recently purchased goods. I didn't know how to react, so I simply drove home in complete silence, just running loops in my head about what had just happened. When I got home, I was greeted by my family. The kids asked to play while Stephanie welcomed me home as she got ready for work. I tried my best to keep my composure, but seeing the ones I love most, right after being told my life has been shortened, cut me deeply. Well, I'm sure they saw it on my face, as the kids gave me confused looks while my wife asked me if everything was okay. I simply told her it was just a long night, and I was just happy to be home. As he said, I sold most of the items purchased, a lot of the cash being put aside for Sam and Sam once I pass. It's been about 14 years since then. Yesterday morning I got a call from the hospital telling me they had my test results. After a rather violent asthma attack a few weeks prior, they said it's lung cancer, untreatable. I've been given an estimate of 3 years left at best. I'm thinking of taking one more trip to Mammonville, even if only to see the place still stands, and if it does, well, I've already been given my death date. What's another year or two? Get them one last gift.